Hello, hello. I can see people start joining in. Exciting. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us on the Going Global webinar today. I think I might just start because we have the agenda. We have amazing four panelists with us. So I would like to start with an acknowledgement of country first. I'm currently sitting on the land of the Kulin Nations, and I wish to acknowledge them as the traditional owners and pay my respect to their elder past, present, and emerging. So hi everyone, this webinar is the second and final virtual sections of the inaugural Future Female Funding Summit by Lift Women. So the summit featured two virtual panel sections, and we had our first panel yesterday, which was very well received. And tonight we are going to have our in-person grand pitch night at Mic Drop South Melbourne, where 9 amazing up-and-coming female founders will pitch live on stage for their chance to win a 15,000 Jumpstarter kit. So there's still time to grab a ticket and join us tonight to support amazing women building impactful business here in Melbourne. Beautiful weather today, amazing. And registration link will be posted in the chat here. So let me introduce myself first. I'm Irene, founder and CEO of Lift Women. We are a female-led fintech startup, social enterprise, and Australia's first women-focused funding marketplace dedicated to supporting female entrepreneurs to raise initial non-dilutive capital to start their businesses and live a life to its fullest potential. So our mission is simple, is to ensure every woman and girl have equitable access to capital and opportunities and to success and to start their businesses. And in 12 months, we've assisted over 300 female founders. We've built a community of 4,000 founders and backers. So if you here, our audience, you are a woman with business dreams and thinking about to start your own business or side hustle, please feel free to reach out to me or my team. We are here to help. So today, I'm super excited to be joined by incredible founders like Sarah and Deborah, who both have successfully scaled their business globally, to walk us through their journey, give us some practical tips and insight about scaling global. And while we're also joined by industry expert in their own right, Julie and Stu, who has assisted countless startups to scale nationally and globally, to tell us how to be prepared if you are thinking about scaling. Even though you're not, just get inspirations. That'll be a great panel for you. And we will also cover why going global is indeed an opportunity for everyone and why you need to give yourself the permission to think big. So are you ready to get inspired? Let's get started. I would like to start the panel with get the panelists, my guest panelists, to introduce themselves. So maybe how about I start with you, Deborah?
Hi, well, it's great to be with everyone here today. So my name's Deborah Taylor. I'm a co-founder and CEO of OpenSparks. We're a platform as a service. So we provide integrations into the main payment gateways, Visa, MasterCard, which enables merchants to fund rewards and offers to our member base. So we're a B2B2C. So our main clients are large organizations with big databases of consumers who want to get offers from merchants. And that's, so what I do is I really combine the worlds of payments and loyalty. So I bridge that gap.
And I know, Deborah, you have started many startup and exit for. Yeah, incredible, very impressive. So our next guest, how about you, Sarah?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah. I'm the founder and CEO of a fashion app called Ms. Tyler, which is spelled My Styler, and then the S gets moved across. If you didn't notice that before. We're a feel good fashion app. So basically what we do is we're like Instagram. So women from around the world post photos of what they're wearing and show you how they style it and what they're wearing, where it's from, what size, etc. But what we do that's different is you put in your body dimensions when you join, and we match you to creators who look most like you. So you essentially find your body double, and then anything they're going out and trying on and showing that it fits, you know it'll fit you too. So essentially it's like body relevant fashion content. And since launching, we now have 225,000 women using this platform around the world. US is our top market, then Australia, then UK. And 100 other countries. And we've actually found that by showing people body relevant fashion content, it actually makes them feel better about themselves because the content they see is not just inspiration, but it's accessible. And they love the diversity of our community, which is like all ages, all sizes, all heights, all ethnicities, and so on. So it's been a really nice journey. We launched in 2020, so it's coming up to 3 years. and I'm a little bit exhausted, but it's all been wonderful. And I had my first startup 10 years ago when I was living in New York, Doodad, which was a global SIM card for travelers. And so I've been in startups for about 10 years. And before that, my background was marketing and advertising.
Wow, I'm looking forward to get to know more about that. And I know you spoke for the UN Women last week with a very large audience, which is amazing to inspire women founders. And I know you're not only a pioneer in that styling industry, but now you're leaders as well. So well done. Congratulations. So off to our next guest, Julie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Dempsey, and I am an ex-Silicon Valley tech exec. I spent 20 years there, running large teams in product management, building companies, starting my own, moved to Australia 6 years ago, and ran an accelerator program for female entrepreneurs for 2 years. And now I am a startup advisor, coach, hypnotherapist, author, and have worked with many clients on bringing them global, as well as worked on many businesses in the business in terms of taking that global as well. Very excited to be here with all of you today.
Amazing. And we love you to be here today because you're going to walk us through the mindset, which is very critical, because a lot of people, even especially like women like us, like we don't really think that's something for us, but we want to tell you that yes, this is something for you and for everyone. So okay, off to you, our men ally, Stu.
Thanks so much, Irene, and big thanks to Lift Women and everyone that's here today for joining. I'm sitting amongst an amazing panel, so everyone else, thanks so much for the intros. Just a little bit of me. So I'm Stu Keane. I'm the community manager at FinTech Australia. FinTech Australia is the peak industry body. We support about 450 fintechs in the market, both homegrown and foreign, and we help to grow a thriving fintech ecosystem here in Australia. I actually work amongst some awesome colleagues at the Australian Trade and Investment Commission as well. So Austrade is the federal government agency that supports trade and investment from Australia and to Australia. In that capacity, I'm helping to deliver Austrade's FinTech Trade Investment Program to help awesome fintechs scale their business overseas and to succeed by driving revenue from foreign markets and bringing that back home for jobs and growth, essentially. But yeah, really looking forward to it. And back to you, Irene.
Yeah, I'm very looking forward to it too. I know you talk to different startups, especially fintech startup, every single day and help them connect with different resources globally and help them scale. So I'm very interested to, hear what you're going to say about the practical tips and insights. Well, so let's get started. I wanted to start with the journey, like going global. How does it look like, and what's the experience look like? And maybe let me start with Deborah. So because you have started a different company and scale global, so tell us about your expansion journey.
Well, as you mentioned before, I've started over 10 companies and I've exited 4. Several of those have had a global reach as well. So I've already worked with in the US, Africa, Europe, APAC. So I've always had a focus on global expansion. And OpenSparks was a perfect opportunity to actually look at global expansion from the very beginning, because being a platform play, we can reach anywhere. So, and also with our integrations with Visa and MasterCard, they're global integrations. So again, I set this up from the beginning to be a globally expanding company. Initially, our reach was in APAC because naturally that's where we're based. We felt we'd just go into the local area first. We had very strong connections with the schemes both in Australia and up in Singapore and into APAC. And in fact, our first program was in the Philippines, which we hadn't really expected. We hadn't really looked at the Philippines, but it came to us. So one thing I want to say to the attendees is just not be limited to where you might start, because who would have thought to go to Philippines first up? Anyway, this is what happened. And we've launched a program in the Philippines with a large shopping mall group. They've got 30 shopping malls, 10,000 merchants. They had before COVID 2.5 million footfall a day. So it was a very big opportunity. And that was our very first program that we launched back in 2019. So So that was where we started. But card linking is what we talk about. We do. The US market is very ripe for card linking. And in fact, there's some of our competitors are there as well, but we offer a very different platform. We offer a platform which can enable large groups of member bases to join. And so it's a bit different to what the competition in the US do. They're more of a B2C play. And so we were drawn to the US, and I'll just have to do a shout out to Stu, because I was part of the FinTech Australia and Austrade program last year about scaling up through the US, and they did a fantastic program, and I've got a lot of value out of that. Great connections over there. And of course, when you are scaling to a new country, you've really got to have connections, people on the ground, know who to talk to. And so Stu and FinTech Australia Austrade have been fantastic to help us with that. So we've got 3 programs we're due to launch in the US in the next 3 months. So we're pretty busy from here getting all of that ready.
I'm very interested to know, like when you say set it up early, like to plan for going global, what that exactly means. Like, for example, I kind of know, because when I started Lyft, I really think about I want to spend. So for me, it's like when I set up the platform, I think about like the multi-currency, I think about multi-language, I think about this kind of capability, and I try to register the IP. When I register, I will register some countries that I want to expand. So these are kind of the things that I think is setting up at the very early stage to prepare for go global. But I also want to know from your experiences, what did you do, like to what you call like set it up early to be prepared?
Well, I think like the technical side, anyone can do. That's an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
What I'm more focused on is the mindset to do that. And to have a mindset of that's where we're going to go. And so what that does, it creates a really big space around you, knowing that your focus is going to be in APAC or in the US. You actually have to think broader than in our like little jurisdiction of Australia. So to me, it's all about the mindset. And that's where I created that from the beginning. This is what I want. And so it's just a big space you get around you. Sarah, would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, I mean, when you think about also Australia is 17 times smaller than the US. And so it is just like a huge opportunity, from the beginning to think about, starting in Australia and then going global. The first company I had, we were based in the US. So we launched in the US, then we expanded to Canada, then we went global like a couple of months later. With Ms. Tyler, it's an app. So we were global from day one. And that was just a matter of like selecting global versus Australia on the App Store. And then, targeting global for Facebook ads. Like that's as simple as going global is for us, in this sort of business that we have right now. And then in terms of, I guess, like the things, to think about, I mean, America is such a big market, and I spent a decade living in New York. It's such a big market that they can be quite internally facing, versus I think most of the rest of the world is a little bit more global in their mindset. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Like even with our app, we aren't localized in terms of languages. So at the moment, we're just English, and we had to choose UK English or US English. And generally we just avoid those words, but when we can't avoid them, we use US spelling, because we're like, the rest of the world will say, oh, it's US spelling. If we had it the other way, US would say that's incorrectly spelt. So I think, it's good to think about it from the very beginning, like what your plan is. It definitely is easier to start locally. For Ms. Tyler, I mean, again, for the most part of what we do, we can be global from day one, but there's definitely like a recruitment side and a partnership side that requires like more of the face-to-face high touch relationships. And that's definitely easier to do on the ground. So as we sort of expand to the US, we're definitely underrepresented in that part of it, just because we don't have the presence there. So over time, we're going to have to develop that, that presence.
I would love to know, like, you're traveling to and from New York and live there and to expand your business. So is there like any lessons learned or how the experience look like? And is there anything that you say, oh, if I know that, I would do that, at day one?
Yeah.
Any tips?
So, I mean, there's also a lot more money in the US. So Australian capital market is very small, particularly in consumer and certain industries that aren't as excited about, like, they're not as exciting for the VCs here, who tend to be more focused on B2B SaaS and enterprise software. When I got back to start this business purely because I couldn't do it in the US on my visa. So I thought, I've got lots of connections. It's going to be easy for me to get meetings in the US on Zoom. I was wrong. Like in America, particularly, if you're not there, you're not relevant. Literally, it took me getting on a plane to be over there. And as soon as you're like, oh, I'm going to be in LA, all of a sudden, like everyone wants to meet with you. But I literally couldn't get those meetings. Even if those meetings end up being on Zoom, I wouldn't have got that meeting if I wasn't local. And so it is like one of those places that you kind of do have a disadvantage, and it's not a level playing field, and you can't just be on Zoom. I mean, you could just say that you're in America and then book the meetings in and be in Australia. But you really do, like, it is just, it's just such a cluttered market. There's so much out there that you need to be relevant, and being relevant means that you're there. And as soon as you're there, then like Americans are the most great at connecting and being open with their networks, and it really is a social currency. So they want to introduce you to all the people they know that they think might be relevant. So if you don't, I mean, I had sort of a warm network already, so that made it easier for me. But if I didn't and I was going in cold, the thing that I would do is book into one of the most relevant like conferences over there. So for instance, like for tech, I mean like TechCrunch Disrupt or South by Southwest, or if you're in mobile apps, there's a conference called MAU. That's in Vegas, which, it's like, TikTok and Facebook and everybody from globally comes to Vegas for that. So if you go to one of those events, you're already going to be meeting a lot of people and developing like really quickly, like warm relationships. And then off the back of that, you can like book in a bunch of meetings and reach out and say, hey, you're heading to MAU. I'm going to be there. If you're there, let's have a meeting. If not, like I'm going to be here afterwards, and let's have a meeting. And the other thing I found that was helpful is like sort of time boxing it. So sort of saying, hey, I'm going to be in LA these 2 days. Are you free to meet? As opposed to just being like, when can you meet? Because all of a sudden, it's a smaller window, and that sort of helps get those meetings in.
Oh, I love this. I love this. Thank you. And I think you make a point is you got to be there. This is one of the advice that I always use. Like when you want to expand to other markets, you either personally, like physically be there, or you have someone that you trust that can operate, or you can help you local to start your business locally. And the second point that you make, conference, I absolutely agree. So that's why I'm working a lot with Stu on the FinTech Singapore and FinTech Hong Kong, and they have a lot of like I think a lot of organizations in different countries, they offer a lot of accelerators and programs and want to attract you to expand to their country. So yeah, definitely check out all these types of conferences, program, or even pitch competitions. Depends on what markets you want to look at. So great advice. Thank you, Sarah. Off to you, Stu. So I know you've been helping a lot of fintech and other startups, like, connect with resources in other countries. So is there any example, or tell us what's your experience around that, and what do you think the startup need to be prepared? How can they be prepared to scale global?
Thanks so much, Irene. Yeah, and I want to actually touch on a few points that have been raised already today, because I think they're really relevant in this example. We've been speaking about the US a lot. We spoke about how Deb was dragged over to the Philippines with Open Sparks as well. I think when we start talking to a business really early stage, they, especially in the fintech space, they think US, UK, Singapore. I have to be in one of these markets because they are enormous homes to financial services globally. But actually, if you have a really good client in a developing market or somewhere else where they want you to switch on, definitely explore that market as well. The challenges around the US or the UK or Singapore for fintech is that's where all of the other best businesses in the world want to go as well, whether they are founded in that home country or a business from another developing market, someone from the Czech Republic, someone from Indonesia. They are also thinking, hey, I want to be on and switch my product or program on in the UK as well, because that's where I can monetize my customers. So really important to think about that as well. That next layer, after doing the market analysis, and Sarah touched on it, that with Ms. Tyler, they were in a really fortunate position that they could switch on their app globally or in Australia. In terms of fintech specifically, or maybe some other segments, health or otherwise, there's a really important step of market analysis with regards to licensing and regulation that has to come on as well. So fintech, in some markets, you can't offer your financial product because exactly that, it's a financial product and you need the licenses and regulations first. So of course, Ms. Tyler would have had a whole number of other challenges, but that was a benefit there, whereas it might be a setback in the fintech space or in the health tech space. Just because your medical device might be able to be put on a ship in Melbourne or Sydney, it doesn't mean that border control in California or in London is going to let it into the market for you to sell it. So yeah, just wanted to touch on those points. But I think really back to the question, Irene, it's about finding, doing some analysis on market entry and where the markets are for you, finding partners who can help you do it, because you're probably a really small startup founder. You don't have an enormous team behind you. You might not have a significant amount of funding yet. So finding whether it's a local council, a state government agency, a federal government agency, or an accelerator who is really willing to help you and put you in touch with the right people so that you can lean on their expertise. So finding people who are experts in setting up a business, experts in accounting principles in Poland, or whatever you may need, rather than spending days and days and days researching it all yourself. Of course, do that research, but find the person who's best in the world at helping you with that market entry strategy. Obviously, it's a tough thing to do, but always worthwhile considering it. My last point there is there are so many people that want to help you and so many programs in place, sometimes too many. So try to figure out which one is best for you. You won't be able to juggle everything. You won't be able to do everything. So pick and choose the ones that you think are best suited to your business and what you want to achieve, and go all in on that one or those few, I would say.
Great advice. And you make a great point around regulations. This is also very important when we want to think global. I take an example like crowdfunding. Yesterday during the panel, we actually said crowdfunding is a very, very big market in US and UK. However, it's not that big here in Australia. One of the reasons is we don't really have that regulations to facilitate that. And so, for example, by law, we're not allowing equity crowdfunding here 4 years ago. So, which is some company rise up to negotiate, lobbying with the government to get the license ready so they can do that business here. So, yeah, just make sure you look for the regulations, whether the business that you are in, you're doing is available in the country. And one takeaway is, even though it's not, don't give up, be persistent and lobby with the government, find someone that could make it happen. So nothing is impossible. So now that we talk about like the growth journey, what's needed, at the very beginning, we talk about mindset. I actually wanted to pass to Julie, because Julie, this is your wheelhouse, transformational leadership mindset, unlimited, like believing. Some of us always think this, I could never go global, I could never do that. But you work with clients on a daily basis, so helping them to shift their mindset and overcome limiting beliefs. So can you talk firstly to us, like why we're afraid to think big, and then how we can overcome this?
Yes. So, my first message to everyone in the audience, I'm guessing a lot of people are sitting there saying, I can't do what Sarah did. I can't do what Deborah did. And I'm here to say you can. They were sitting in your same shoes. I'm getting nods, right? They were sitting in your same shoes one day, starting a business. And everything we do when we start our businesses is new, and it's a learning process. So if we just remember that this might feel a little, pardon the pun, but foreign to us in the beginning when we're going international, it might feel uncomfortable. But as we step in, and as everybody was saying, when you work your network and you speak with people who have support, you're continually learning, and you're getting to a point where you start to feel more ready. So it's just continuing to back yourself and say, I know that I can do this. So there's a saying, you can say you can or you can't, and either way, you'll be right. So it's just, speaking to your mind, sitting down, taking a deep breath, remembering that everything that you want to do, you absolutely can make happen. So it's just having that belief, and it's not being afraid to go forward and to have those conversations, and remembering. You can probably tell from my accent, I am American. So I was in business here for many years. And I speak with a lot of Australians who, when they're going global, especially, they will say, well, I reached out to somebody and they didn't respond. Guess what? Those people that aren't responding, you're not their first priority, most likely, right? If you're looking to grow your business, but that's okay. because you can easily reach back out to them and just say, hey, listen, I'm sure you're very busy, but I want to bring this back to the top of your inbox, or whatever kind of communication it is. You know, as Sarah was saying, everybody, when she was on the ground, was very willing to meet with her. So just find a place where you can get started and make it happen. And each time you have a little win, you're going to feel a little bit stronger and a little bit more ready and confident to go out there and have that next meeting. And just tell yourself that this is not, you know, the beginning or the end of my company. It's if something doesn't happen, it's continuing to be the beginning and the next step and the next step. So if something doesn't go your way, things don't go our way every day, 100% of the time. So don't take that little setback and say, I can't do this. Take that little setback and say, what did I learn from this? And how can I apply it to the next meeting? So we're continuing to learn and grow with each thing that we do. The other thing is, we've talked a lot about the big markets here, and the mindset tends to come from, what is everybody in the industry talking about? Well, they're saying we've got to go to the US or the UK, but really what's most important is not what everybody else is doing, but where your customers are going to be. And if you find that market fit in a small country somewhere else, and you've got some connections and you've got an in, that's a great place to go.
I love that. And I remember you mentioned about, like, sometimes you don't have to be too comfortable, right? Yeah, sometimes you can challenge yourself.
Yeah, if we wait to be comfortable, things don't happen. And that happens personally and professionally, right? So how many times do you try a new sport or go out to dinner at a new restaurant, or, you know, try something that seems very small, but we're doing that every day. We're trying and experiencing new things in our personal life, and we're just fine. So carry that over to your business life and know that you'll be just fine there as well.
I love that. And over to you, Deborah. Like, I'm sure there were certain times when you, because you've been starting so many businesses, that you thought certain things would not be possible, you couldn't do that, or maybe some downtime. So, but you keep going anyway, like pursue. Can you share an experience like what keeps you going, and when you feel like that, what's when you overcome that?
Yes, look, it's interesting because I guess it's just my mindset. Like, I just think big all the time. I just don't think about a small program or a small opportunity. So it really is a mindset. Totally agree with Julie. You just got to think big. And I see in the chat here, discomfort is a good thing. Absolutely. Like, put yourself in a position where you're not comfortable, where you have to be bigger than who you are, because then you have to grow into that biggerness. And once you grow to that biggerness, then grow into a bigger person again. So it really is about the confidence to do it, think big. And I've made a couple of other comments too, because I've worked in APAC for about 12 years now, and dealing with people in the APAC region is very different to dealing with people in the US. Sarah would well know this. In the US, you've got to have chutzpah. You get there. Now, luckily, I signed all my agreements via Zoom. So because I'm a B2B, I was able to actually engage my clients, do it via Zoom. There's very few people who do what I do. So I was very fortunate in that respect. But I had to deal with the people I deal with in the US in a very different way. And I agree with Sarah's points about, I'm here for 2 days, when can you meet? So people in the US really want to meet with you. They want to help you. They want fast action. If they offer to do something for you, take them up on it, get back to them, respond. Whereas in APAC and in dealings with our Philippine company, we have to go very differently. You know, you have to change your tone of voice. You have to change the way you approach them. And so I've got to go from my US clients where I'm up, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, let's do this, right, got it, I'll put the team in place, to APAC, where I have a different relationship. I have to really work with them more closely. You have to be more directional in APAC, because I found out early on, you can say, oh, can we do this? And they'll go, yes or no. It might be a no. And I'll go, well, could we do it this way? And they go, oh, yeah, we can do it that way. But they don't think to actually broaden it out themselves. They don't think laterally like we do. So you have to be very, very specific with how you deal with people in APAC. You have to direct them to think differently to your question and keep going at them from different angles to be able to get what you want. And that's just one thing I've learned. So my other advice is, or my comment is, know who the people in your market are and know how to deal with them, and change your personality to deal with them the way they want to be dealt with.
Yeah, I love that. I was born in China, I grew up in Hong Kong, and I moved to Australia. So now I do a startup here in Australia. So I completely agree with you. Like, you got to deal with different people. When you deal with different people, you have to be aware of their culture, the way they talk to people, the way they build relationship. It has to be by practice and observations. And if you have, I highly recommend people, if you have someone, they're from different countries or different nations, talk to them more often and build some relationships and start from there, and you gradually will know how different countries work. And even in Asia, developing country and developed countries, that's completely different. And the pace they work and the way they talk is completely different. So it's a great point, Deborah. And Sarah, so do you want to add to that mindset and what you need to prepare yourself for going forward?
I mean, I think sadly, like, if you like being comfortable, you should probably not be an entrepreneur. If you don't like awkward things, you don't feel like feeling uncomfortable. I mean, like, I just always feel awkward and uncomfortable, basically, and I've just become comfortable with that. And it is that sort of thing. Like, for instance, like, I mean, even if you don't like public speaking, honestly, it's a great way to get exposure and for people to get to know you. So even if you weren't comfortable doing that, sign yourself up to speak somewhere, and then you'll have to figure out how to speak by the time that comes along. And then all of a sudden you've done it, and now you know you can do it. So I think that's really good, is just kind of like trying to think about what you need to do and just like finding some way to like force yourself to do that. Because honestly, like, I think we're very good at knowing what we've done in the past historically. And sometimes we have less confidence about what we know, what we think we can deliver. We think we can deliver it. We don't know we can deliver it, but we can. So we should just, like, take steps towards that. And I definitely, one of the first pieces of advice I had from my first investor was to shoot and then ready aim. And the whole point was, you can have assumptions and you can spend time making the assumptions better and better and better, but they're still assumptions and they could all be wrong. Whereas the first time you get data, it's real data. Like, and then, that data, you can make decisions off that data. And often you'll learn as well that actually the steps that you thought were involved is actually like 17 steps before step one, and so things take longer and more involved than you think. But even if you have an idea, there's so many easy ways that you can start like validating, like create a splash page on a website, run spend $50 running like an ad to see if people are interested at all, and then giving you their email address. Like, there's just like so many different easy ways you can do things to start validating and like learning and self-teaching. And it's cool now, like, you can go onto like Wix or Squarespace and create a website in like 2 minutes. So there's so many different things that we can do sort of ourselves before we have to like start spending money and bringing other people in. But then in terms of like leadership as well, I think, startups move like really fast. We change all the time. So I think having like a big picture and having everybody understand the context of the business is really important. Like, a decision may not make sense if they don't understand context, because it's actually the wrong thing for marketing, but it's the right thing for trying to secure investment, for instance. So I think if you can kind of give people that context, and then they understand that when things are changing, it's not because you're like flipping and flopping all over the place. It's just because you're sort of navigating the way to that sort of goal, that North Star.
Great point. And I actually want to ask Stu as well, are you been working with so many startups that are thinking about, oh, maybe I would try that market, this market. So is there any common things, you say, like when they're trying to do that, planning to do that, what's in their mind? And do you have any thoughts around that?
There are obviously so many steps in the process, and I think we're trying to touch on as many of them as we can today. I think a really important one is localization and the cultural sensitivities, which have been spoken about as well. In May, Austrade and FinTech Australia led a group of 10 Australian fintechs to the US. We had 2 weeks in New York, attended an enormous fintech conference over there, much larger than what we have back home. Actually, the first session every participant did by video call before heading over to New York was with a speech coach. So how to pitch how to pronounce your words, how to help people in the US understand the message you're trying to convey. Day one in New York, we did a session on cultural sensitivity. So everyone was asked to bring some food or snacks from their home country, or any kind of food or snacks that they could share with everyone. And we went around the room, everyone had to share some stories about that specific item that they brought. So obviously a lot of people think that they speak English in America, will be right. They'll understand our pitch, they'll understand our story and the message we're trying to convey. It's not always the case. You could have the best business in the world, but if you're not able to convey that message, then there are all these other challenges at the same time. So every founder, every CEO in that group spent at least 2 hours on their language, their speech, and cultural sensitivities. Usually, founders are too busy to focus on that kind of thing. They want to just keep building when it's a fintech product. But understanding those baby steps to get to the export market is really important as well. I think, again, a really early decision that everyone has to make is around when you are ready for export. So Australia is a smaller market comparatively to some of the global markets, but GDP per capita here is high, income is high, all of those kind of items. Have you really taken 100% of the market share here? And are you profitable and ready to go overseas? Or do you have that capital in the bank to be able to fund your overseas expansion is a question you'll always need to ask yourself. If you've completely conquered market share here and you're doing really well, maybe rather than growing overseas, you could help to grow that market share. So bring more customers, businesses or individuals into your little group so you can sell to them as well. Yeah, does that answer the question, Irene?
Yeah, it's a good point. And what you mentioned about like the speech coach and bringing the food from their own country, this is really, really interesting. And it's actually a great program. I mean, we're part of the program. I like that.
So important to consider, yeah. And Deb touched on it before as well. Speaking to people in the US, potential customers or investors, will be completely different to speaking to those in Asia or ASEAN or the Philippines in that example.
Yeah.
Just
But
on that, I was just going to say, like, I mean, like if you don't do the speech course, then it's going to be very hard to even order a glass of water because nobody understands that. But also, like, actually, I did, it was called the San Francisco Landing Pad, also run by Austrade. And that's also a great course. And they run them around the world, I think. I don't know. But
correct.
One of the things that they taught was, even just the titles, like, so what, a GM means here, but they don't really use general manager in America, but they have vice presidents and they have all these other different things. And particularly if you're in a business where you need to hire a sales team, understanding like, what are those positions? Like who's the type, like, what are the titles so that you know who to speak to or who to hire is really important.
I think even the organization, some company may not be big here, but they might be really big in that country, particular country. So, and that's such a great point. So I actually want to finish the panel with a practical tips for people to take away, for the audience to take away. But I found like, throughout the panel, you guys are amazing, have been giving a lot of tips already, but I still wanted to go into like what a piece of advice you would love to give to audience that thinking about trying to scale national or global, and what do you think they need to do? And because after the panel, we would love the audience to have something that they can act on immediately, or some simple steps or easy steps that they can follow, so they can start to plan for that, or even they can start to do it. So maybe let me start with Deborah. What practical piece of advice would you give to a business owner who is looking to take that next step to the global market?
Well, for me, it's all around attitude and mindset. If you got to know your product, your industry, what to do technically, operationally, legally, financially. There's all of those things you need to do, but it's about the mindset. And one thing that I like, we're on our laptops all the time. This call, I'm looking at my laptop. So it's quite a small little world that we live in when we're dealing on our laptops, doing our work, things like that. What I like to do is I like to go out and look at big things. So I always like to have a view. I grew up on a farm. I'd sat on my veranda and I'd always be able to look into the distance. And so I've always had a view of like, if I've got a problem or an issue, I'll go somewhere and look into something big, like in Sydney, go to the beaches and look out over a cliff and look at the waves and the wind. I've got property in the Hunter Valley in the middle of a 20,000 acre state forest, and so my block is bush block. So we've got little cabins there, and I go up there. I look into the trees. I've got distances. I've got hills over here, and so I've always got to look and see big things to actually enable me to think big. So that would be my practical advice. Go and look at something big, forest, mountains, something like that.
Great. And that's what I've also been telling the finalists tonight, because they're going to pitch. And just like Sarah said, even we as a founder, we always need to speak or, talk to people or pitch to people. So my advice is, instead of pitching in front of computer, that you practice, in front of your computer and screen, to go somewhere that you can look into distance, and then imagine there is a crowd in front of you, and then you pitch, and the whole practice will become different, and will really help you when you really, face an audience that's, in a crowd. So that's a great advice. How about you, Julie? What's your piece of advice for the audience that's thinking about going global?
So I've got a few things. First of all, they always say that if you're waiting to have children till you're ready to have children, you'll never do it. And I'd say it's the same about moving forward with your business and going global. Don't wait till you're completely ready, because it's going to be too late. Just build on that confidence. Look at your past proof points. You've gotten this far with your business. You've gotten this far with your life. Look for the proof points that you've been able to make things happen, and know that you'll be able to make that happen in the future. I was speaking not too long ago with some girls that were going into year 8, and we were trying to get them interested in STEM and helping them with their mindset. I was sharing with them, they were worried, they didn't think they could go forward. I'm like, the fact that you're all here, that you're in the 8th grade, you have passed every grade to get here, right? So look for those small things even, and remember how far you've come and how much you can do, and you'll be great.
Yeah, off to you, Sarah. What's your one piece of advice?
I mean, do I have to be limited to one? I mean, I do think, it is, you have to be ready for growing complexity, growing cost, growing distraction, all that sort of stuff when you go global. It's like, even for me, it's like, if I want to grow the Australian market, I'm taking the money away from another market in terms of our Facebook spend, for instance. And, then you have to think about, the experience overseas. If you are doing it, then just like think about the people that you're going to be speaking to, and even things like the weather, their public holidays. Like, there's no point contacting someone when it's July 4th in America. And just honestly, like, even like, we started doing things and we're like, oh, it's freezing here today, and everyone's like, we're in summer, and I'm like, we've got to think global. Like, we can't do things like that. So just being aware about like the holidays, the weather. If you're writing to someone in America, you use US spelling, just because they're just going to pick it up. Even punctuation like is slightly different. And if you're trying to book a meeting with them, use their timing. Don't say 9 p.m., Eastern, whatever we are, Australian Daylight Savings Time, like put it in their time zone. Just like make it easy for them. Otherwise it's an issue. And then I think just in terms of like startups, my advice is evolving, but at the beginning, it's like, just say yes to everything. Like, you kind of have to initiate everything at the beginning, but then you initiate things, and then all of a sudden then it bounces back to you, and now you can respond to it. And responding is a lot less exhausting than initiating, but you kind of have to do all the initiating at the beginning. Say yes to everything. You don't know what's going to lead to something. And then at some point, which is where I'm getting to, you'll occasionally have to start saying no to things, just because. But it's difficult, because what's made you successful is saying yes to everything, and now that doesn't work for you anymore. And the other thing, sort of like similar to what was touched on before, is we used to do this, and we should continue to do it. But we would write down all our wins during the month. Like, we hit 1,000 Instagram followers. We sent out our first order, whatever it is. Like, you put down your wins, and then also your losses. Like, oh, our customer email system hasn't actually been working, and no one's received a response from our customer support in the last month. But then at the end of the quarter, you look at the wins, and something that you thought was exciting like 3 months ago, all of a sudden seems like the tiniest, most insignificant thing. And it makes you realize, like, wow, we thought that was exciting. Now look how far we've come. but also like look at what we've navigated. And it's actually just really cool. Just like in 3 months in a startup, like the amount that you evolve is crazy. So I think that's sort of like helps you kind of go, wow, like we can definitely do bigger, better things next time.
I love you say celebrate wins. So we as a woman always have that imposter syndrome that we're not good enough, and and it's very important you celebrate, keep going, and celebrate wins. That's such a great point. Stu, do you have any practical tips for us?
I think 2 really quick things. The first one is that you can do it. Believe in yourself, commit to the market, which is what I'll touch on. But we've helped really successful female-founded financial services businesses in regions like the UAE, which is not typically something you would think that female leaders would even be in that market. But there's change there. You can do it. Believe in yourself. Those individuals are now speaking on panels, doing amazing things everywhere. So you can do it. And the second thing is commit. If you've made the decision that you are entering a market, really go for it. Get to that market physically, meet the people in person if you can, hire a country manager if you can't do it yourself or if the time zone is too difficult. But if you made that decision, then you really got to go for it.
And actually just on that, even if you don't believe in yourself, do it anyway.
I love that. Yeah. So we are really great timing, and we have 10 minutes left for some Q&A. And I saw people like popping in the Q&A chat box. So I might just moderate a little bit this, like Sarah and Deborah. This question is for you too. Like, what support networks have helped you along your business journey, especially as you went overseas? And for Stu, is what resources are available to support this?
Well, I'll speak first, if that's okay, Sarah, because of this connection with Stu and FinTech Australia and their connection with Austrade. And certainly that has been a fantastic way for me to get the support I need in the US market. Also, industry conferences. Sarah spoke about this before. I was a member of a global card linking organization. I would go to all their conferences, meet people, network. That was just so invaluable. So any industry association that you can join that's global, join them, go to conferences, meet people, talk about what you do. And certainly Austrade and their landing pad, Sarah's done it. I haven't done the San Francisco one, but I'm connected with the people there as well. So yeah, the Austrade landing pads, the Austrade organizations, they are global. They want to help you. So reach out to groups like that from Australia, and yeah, industry conferences most certainly.
Yeah, and then I guess I went through Antler, which is a startup incubator program. So by going through that, there was 13 other companies that got funded alongside mine, or 12. But so you immediately had a network of peers, and the founders in that network have been incredible because they're going through the exact same process that you are in building a business. And often, like, even though it's a completely different business model and customer, you both have to incorporate the business. You both have to figure this out, this tax thing. You're probably applying for the same grants and things like that. So I think having a network of founders is really great. And even if you don't go through a program, honestly, like, you can reach out to people that are founders and be like, I'm looking to start a new business. Would you mind if we just like had a chat? And people are really generous. The other thing is that, when you start bringing on investors, like, it is really great if you can bring on investors that are also acting as advisors, or, that are willing to give up their time and their knowledge. And then finally, I think the biggest thing is honestly just like ask, be open with what you need. Like, literally, if you need something, post it on Instagram or like LinkedIn and just like say, we're struggling with this. Does anybody know this? And honestly, you'll be amazed. Like, people will they'll share it with their friend that's in that knowledge, and people will give you sort of information that you're looking for. So when you need something, just ask and put it out to the universe. And if you can be clear with that ask, you'll get sort of results. So.
Do you want to add to that?
I think just touching on Deb's point, for those of you who don't know anything about Austrade, it's an Australian government agency. They have offices in over 70 global locations around the world. They have business development professionals based in those embassies and consulates around the world, and they are there to help you. They understand that market really, really well. So lean on that support. But at the same time, you as the founder or as a chief of something, you are still in the driver's seat. So Austrade is there to complement your existing strategy, but really you need to continue that push on for yourself in your business, and then they'll plug in and support where possible, as will investors, other networks, friendlies that you have around the world.
I love that. And I've got questions here. I guess it's open up for everyone, like, if you want to jump in. How do I know when I'm ready to go global? Are there any triggers that, let you know, oh, this is the time and I'm ready? Anyone want to?
Maybe only after you've succeeded in that market. So at the time, you might never know. We were helping a really significant UK fintech and bank. A couple of, maybe a month ago, they came out to Australia to scope the market. They said to us really clearly, we are at least 24 to 36 months away from entering the market, but we're just scoping. So if you have the ability to do that, if you have the scope, the time and the resources to be able to really learn a lot about the market far before you enter, then that's helpful. Of course, not everyone has that capacity. So there might be some other comments for people to share here, as well as more experienced individuals.
Well, I just think it depends on like the complexity of entering a new market, because it could be that you've got like a business on Etsy and it's just understanding the customs to ship internationally. And so, then it's just a matter of like, is there demand, already, then I'll figure this thing out and I can, go global, so I think it's just really understanding like, what's involved in the process. And then based on that complexity, like what would it require for you to either like create the demand, or are you just responding to the demand? And if it was a matter of creating the demand, it's like, do you have the budget for that? Or, does it already exist?
Is there a difference is there a difference if it's the product-based business, or is it service-based, or is it tech-based business? For Sarah, because there's another question that I see.
I mean, it depends. It's also like, based on, what you're charging and taxation and things like that. I mean, like Ms. Tyler, because it's a free app, makes it very easy. But, Doodad I had before, which was like a SIM card. And so we would ship the SIM card globally, but then they would like, add credit to their account, but it was all just done through the US company. But so you do need to involve like tax advisors and legal advisors. I mean, one other thing to consider is if you really do think, for instance, that your business will eventually actually move to another country, for instance, like you're eventually going to become an American company, because something that we're going through at the moment is considering whether we flip up and actually change from being an Australian company to a US company. At the moment, our cap table is very simple because we have 2 investors and everyone else is on a safe note. As soon as we convert those safes, we have a lot more investors and it becomes very complicated to flip up to the US company. So we're trying to figure that out now. But if you are going to ever go global and you might need to be based somewhere else for whatever reason, think about these things in advance so that you can get the advice, because you don't want to do something inadvertently that blocks your options in the future.
Julie, you want to add something?
Yeah, I think it's making sure also that you've got product market fit in that country. You've got to deal with all of the things that have been spoken about. And I think it's different for each company, even in terms of the categories you were talking about, what those things are going to be. So it's getting a feel for that. But it's also, there are times when I've worked with clients where they have had potential clients from countries reach out to them and ask if they're coming to that market. And I think that's the time to do the due diligence and say, hey, let's see if we can make this work. Stuart, I know you were saying before that you really want to make sure you've saturated the Australian market. And I think that's important. But I think also sometimes a business founder can find that there's only so much they can do in the market, and there might be another market around the world that has a better product market fit. So I think that's really important. Another point I forgot to bring up before that I want to circle back to, because I think this is really important too, is understand when yes means yes and when yes means no. Because there are lots of people in lots of countries where the answer is always yes, even when it's really no. So, as Deborah was talking about, you need to change your style. You also need to change your understanding and understand what's going on in that culture. And as much as we don't want to hear no's in business, it's much better to get to a quick no than to spend a year thinking that it's going to be a yes and learning it was a no from the beginning.
incredible. Oh, I'm sorry. So thanks so much to our panelists today. I'm sure your audience have taken away some of the insights and tips and practical steps to think about how you can scale and grow global. And I just want to say a big thank you to our panelists today. And I know Julie joining from US. Thank you so much for your time. And it's great advice and great tips. And a reminder that you can still join our Grand Pitch night tonight at South Melbourne. And we also have live stream options. And I know my team, Karina, has been putting in some link here. And also you can grab a ticket there. And one last thing is, I'm sure that all the panelists here are welcome you to get in touch. So I think we also put in our contact in the chat box here. So feel free to reach out to any of us if you need any support or advice. And we are all here to help you. So thank you once again for all your time and for the audience who's joining us today. I'm so excited and thank you very, very much. I hope you all have a great day. Bye.
Thanks, Irene. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.